Welcome to Brule Media, where we explore the business strategies behind the brands you love. Back in 2001, Restoration Hardware was a struggling furniture store tucked inside shopping malls, selling everything from brass knobs to Aquatrol sprinklers. Today, it's RH, a $4 billion luxury brand with gallery spaces that feel more like museums and a model so compelling that 95% of customers pay $100 a year just to shop. At the center of it all is Gary Friedman, a kid who grew up on food stamps, started as a stock boy at the Gap, and went all in on one radical belief: luxury furniture isn't about discounts, it's about experience. So pour yourself something comforting, get settled in, and let's see how RH redefined luxury retail and why the cracks may be finally showing. Let's start at the very beginning. In 1979, Stephen Gordon opened a small hardware store in Eureka, California. He called it Restoration Hardware, and at the time, it was exactly what the name promised. Through the 80s and 90s, the store grew, expanding into home furnishings and lifestyle products. But somewhere along the way, the focus started to blur. The company went public in 1998. On paper, it looked like a milestone. Behind the scenes, though, Restoration Hardware had never turned a profit, not once. By 2001, the business was bringing in $350 million in revenue, but the stores felt scattered: garden gnomes, aquatrol sprinklers, and a little bit of everything, and no real identity. Customers were confused. The company was quietly drifting towards bankruptcy. It was a brand with potential, but it had lost its way. And that's where our story meets Gary Friedman, a man who would see the possibilities hidden beneath the chaos. Where others saw failure, he saw a chance to reinvent it all. And that's when Gary Friedman stepped in. His story matters because it explains why he saw what everyone else missed. Born in 1957 in San Francisco, he lost his father at 5, raised by a single mother facing mental illness and financial struggles. Life wasn't easy, but it taught him resilience. School didn't come naturally to him. He dropped out of community college with a D average. But in 1977, at 20, he became a Gap stock boy. Quickly, he rose, youngest store manager, then district and regional manager. In 1988, he joined Williams Sonoma and did something remarkable. He transformed Pottery Barn from a $50 million brand into a $1 billion empire. He also created the West Elm concept. For years, CEO Howard Lester promised Gary he would be the company's next CEO. Gary believed him, he had earned it, and he was ready. Then in 2001, Lester passed him over. Total shock, total heartbreak. He was advised, don't do anything emotional. You've got 50 million in stock options. You can't walk away from that. That night, Gary walked the foggy streets of San Francisco. He passed a billboard that read, "He who dies with the most toys is still dead." And in that moment, he made a choice. He walked away from the 50 million. Purpose mattered more than money. Shortly after, Restoration Hardware came calling. Stock under $1, the company was on the brink of bankruptcy. Most people would have walked the other way, but not Gary. He saw opportunity where others saw failure. He put 4.5 million of his own money on the line and raised 15 million more to save the company. His vision was bold: cut 70% of the products, focus on luxury, eliminate clutter, and curate every item like it belonged in a museum. And in 2004, 6 years after going public, Restoration Hardware made a profit for the first time ever. But then disaster struck. In 2005, the company lost 29 million as the housing market began to wobble. The stock plummeted from 9 to $3, and in 2007, Sears tried to take over the company. Then 2008 arrived. the financial crisis hit, the housing market collapsed, and furniture sales took a nosedive. Private equity firm Catterton cut their buyout offer from 267 million to 179 million. RH had to go private just to stay alive. Through it all, Gary held firm. He believed luxury retail was evolving and he had a vision worth fighting for. In 2012, Restoration Hardware became simply RH, a rebrand that quietly said, everything is about to change. They went public again, and Gary made a bet that at first glance seemed downright crazy. He didn't want to open ordinary stores, he envisioned galleries, massive spaces in historic buildings with ceilings that soared, curated like art museums. Each gallery came with a price tag of $10 to $30 million, a bold, nerve wracking gamble. In 2015, RH Chicago opened at the Three Arts Club, a landmark building in the Gold Coast. And this is what set it apart. It wasn't just a gallery, there was a courtyard cafe, a wine vault, and even a rooftop restaurant. This wasn't shopping as we knew it, it was a luxury lifestyle experience. You could spend hours here, have lunch, browse, and feel like you were in a private design studio. Meanwhile, every other retailer seemed to be running in the opposite direction, closing stores and moving online. And yet, Gary doubled down. More galleries followed in New York, LA, and other major cities. Each one a statement that luxury retail could be immersive, personal, and unforgettable. Then in 2016, Gary did something even more daring. He launched the Grey Card membership, $100 a year for 25% off everything. People were skeptical, charging people to shop. That'll never work. But within just 1 year, 95% of RH's business came from members. Today, nearly 400,000 people pay annually. That's over 40 million in recurring revenue before anyone even buys a single pillow. The psychology behind it is brilliant. It's the Costco model applied to luxury. Once someone pays the membership fee, they're committed. They want to get their money's worth. They shop more, they stay loyal. Gary had done more than create a revenue stream. He had built a moat around his business, a community of devoted customers who were invested in the experience itself. But not everything went smoothly. In 2012, Gary stepped down as CEO after an alleged relationship with a subordinate. Her ex boyfriend sent threats and the FBI got involved. He returned the next year as co CEO and chairman. Then came the design lawsuits. Multiple companies claimed RH copied their designs. In 2017, RH sued Crate and Barrel, claiming they copied RH's restaurant concept. And in 2025, our house sued, alleging RH hired their CMO who stole trade secrets. There was also a securities fraud case over false inventory statements. RH settled for 50 million, but the biggest headache, Aspen. In 2021, RH announced a $105 million Aspen ecosystem, a gallery, guest house, spa, and residences. They promised a 2022 opening. Years later, still unfinished, locals called the structures eyesores. Stop work orders piled up. RH spent over $140 million with little to show. Local officials called it one of the most pressing issues in the community. Then in April 2025, during an earnings call, Trump announced new tariffs. RH's stock dropped 40% in just 24 hours. There are also questions about lifestyle. Gary owns two Gulfstream jets and a 130-foot yacht, all branded RH. Meanwhile, company cash plunged from 2.3 billion to just $42 million. Today, RH has a market cap of around $4 billion, but there's a catch. Profit margins have taken a hit, down to 2.3% from 4.2. Net income is down 43%, and an operating margin has dropped from 22% in 2022 to less than 3% today. The company is carrying nearly $3 billion in debt. Yet they're still expanding. RH England opened, RH Paris opened, and they're selling $10,000 sofas in the middle of economic uncertainty. Gary continues to bet on physical luxury experiences, galleries, and immersive spaces, believing that the in person curated world of RH is still the future of luxury retail. So, what can we take away from RH's story? First, find the white space. Gary asks a simple question: where does luxury furniture fall short? Not in the product, but in the experience. Customers wanted to linger, feel inspired, and enjoy the space. So he built galleries with rooms to breathe and places to gather. Shopping became an experience, not just a transaction. Second, bet against the trend when your gut tells you there's more. While everyone rushed online, Gary leaned into something physical and personal. He believed people still crave real spaces and real moments. Sometimes the bravest moment is the one that feels lonely at first. Third, build commitment before the sale. The Grey Card wasn't just a perk, it was a promise. Customers chose to belong, creating loyalty and recurring revenue long before a purchase was made. Fourth, put your money where your heart is and stay steady through the mess. When the company was hanging by a thread, Gary invested 4.5 million of his own money. That belief was personal and the road wasn't smooth. There was near bankruptcies, a housing crash, scandals, and lawsuits. It took 20 years of grit and a willingness to keep going when quitting would have been easier. Sometimes success isn't about speed, it's about staying long enough for the vision to catch up. And one gentle reminder: warning signs matter. Shrinking margins, failed expansions, heavy debt, low cash. These aren't footnotes, they're signals. Success stories are rarely clean, and not every bold vision lasts forever. Wisdom lives in dreaming big and listening when the numbers start to speak. All right, that's the RH story, built with bold vision and a few unanswered questions along the way. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, subscribe to Brule Media. There are so many more stories waiting for us. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one.